Welcome to Moving the Needle, the podcast packed with digital marketing strategies crafted exclusively for med spas. If you're looking to draw in more patients, grow your revenue, and level up your business, you're in the right place. This show is your inside track to scaling smarter. Get ready to glow up and get your injection of med spa marketing strategies with your host, Chris Fink.
Welcome back to Moving the Needle, the podcast where we break down strategies, systems, and decisions that can help med spa owners build profitable, sustainable, and truly excellent practices. I'm your host, Chris Fink, and today I have an incredible guest joining us, somebody who's played a major role in elevating the standards for aesthetics, wellness, and practice management, and that's nationwide. My guest today is Brandon Mullen. And Brandon is the founder and CEO of MPWR, or MPWR, Aesthetics and Wellness, with two locations serving Greenburgh and Penn Township in Pennsylvania. Brandon's a board-certified registered nurse, a speaker, an educator, an injector, doing all the things, wearing all the hats, and a leader whose experience spans ICU, case management, aesthetic medicine, full-scale practice operations. And what he's built is a practice where clinical meets wellness model, and it focuses on natural, balanced, evidence-based results, and really deep patient empowerment. He also wears some other hats in the industry. He founded the Aesthetics Practice Management Group. He speaks at some top conferences, including Aesthetics Next and AmSpa. He co-hosts two really well-known podcasts that you may already be tuned into and listening to, the Aesthetics Injector Gang and Injector Business Blueprint. So he's somebody that clearly understands both the clinical and the business sides of this industry at a very high level. Brandon, welcome to Moving the Needle.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, well, I've been very excited about this conversation, and everything that I just said kind of sums up why. Like, you're a voice in this industry, and you've got some battle scars. You've got the chops at this point in time. So I'd love to get into your story a little bit. Like, take us back to the beginning. You spent over 15 years in healthcare. Like, what pulled you towards aesthetic medicine?
So I got into nursing in a completely organic, accidental way. I was a nursing assistant way back when, almost 25 years ago, and I had a patient. I was taking her up to her room. She fell on top of me and went into cardiac arrest and passed away. And that kind of springboarded me into healthcare in general, because I did not want to be in that situation again where I didn't know how to react. And that just kind of led from one thing to another. I eventually got into bedside nursing and kind of niched in critical care. Critical care led me to case management. Case management led me to work for a software company of all places. I was a client relationship executive. They kind of liked how I handled the software. It was a clinical software that case managers at insurance companies used. So I trained the software, and I knew enough to be dangerous about a lot of the back end stuff that really intrigued me, because I really like to know the details of everything. So I started to sell that, and it was good for a couple years, and then COVID happened, and the company did not do so well. They were sold, and my friend reached out to me. She kind of took COVID as an opportunity to reevaluate her trajectory for her life, and she rolled the dice, maxed out her Amex, and said, you know what, I'm opening up my own practice. And she was booked and busy for 3 months out, and she's like, I'm losing my mind. I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z. Will you be my practice manager? And I said, well, I don't know how to do X, Y, and Z either, but I'm willing to learn. So one thing led to another, and I managed her practice for almost 4.5 years. And kind of in the background, I never really advertised it because I did a lot of her business dealings. I was injecting in Pennsylvania. Now, mind you, this practice was in Virginia. So I was driving back and forth to Virginia for the better part of 4 years, 4.5 years. So I was in Pennsylvania injecting just tox on the side and kind of built up a little following in the interim. So when we decided to amicably part ways in January of this year, I decided to create Empower to literally empower two of my part-time injectors to live out their own dreams and their own wishes because it is so hard to get into this industry. So I know I just touched on probably like 5 different topics because I have terrible ADHD. So I'm going to take a pause there and let you digest that, Chris, and see where you want to go next before I say too much.
No, that's great. Yeah. So in that time, like, was it when you were in the practice management that you realized that aesthetic medicine was kind of your long-term path, like really what you were feeling called to do?
Honestly, it was the business end initially that intrigued me. I really enjoyed starting to go to aesthetic conferences and learning about all of the nuances about the not only the technical and clinical aspects of injecting, but more of the emotional appeal and the kind of problem solving that you do as an injector, more on the therapy lines to really help people feel better, look their best from the inside and out, whatever the situation, became that led them to the path to your chair. There's so much more than just relaxing wrinkles or softening skin. We're really appealing to emotions in aesthetics.
Got it. I love it. And thinking with the practice now, where you're at with this, I'm interested in the vision. Like, I'd love to hear about the early strategy, what exactly you wanted to create, but some of the challenges and early wins that shaped the direction of this practice growth.
So my little incubator, I'll call it, was really my first Greensburg location. So it is a couple rooms inside of a dental practice. So my buddy, Dr. Josh Perry, owns Modern Dental Associates in Greensburg. He did a beautiful 10,000 square foot build out a couple years ago, and he had this like whole vacant side. And I've been a patient for years, and I'm like, Josh, what are you doing with this? Like, this is just a waste of space. Like, let me put a couple rooms in there. So I got the idea to really create Empower for my two girls because throughout the years, they had mentored me and they had done all the things that I had told them to do to get into the industry. They tried to build their own resume. They went to the weekend credentialing courses. They put their resume out there, but nobody was biting because they didn't have experience. And it's like, well, I can't get experience unless I work somewhere. So, it's a challenging market in the Pittsburgh area, like it is in many areas. So my thought was, you know what, I'm really good at the business part of it. So let me create a brand experience for patients. You guys inject, and we're going to live happily ever after, just doing a little bit of tox, some biostimulators, and some skincare. And it wasn't really my initial thought or plan to have this be my full-time job, but that ended up being the case. I no longer managed my friends' practices, so when that happened, I really had to lean in and kind of really explore the other clinical avenues that I really didn't have a ton of experience in, mostly injectables, including fillers and biostimulators. So, I wasn't really sure either what the market in the Greensburg area was going to want or sustain. So I didn't really think initially there was going to be a lot of interest in filler. So we just started out with tox and PRF, more natural things, because there's a lot of stigma still around filler. Everyone that gets lips, they equate to duck lips. Like, that's the only option. It's no
Right.
lips or duck lips.
Right.
So it's a lot of education. But, there were just continual asks for things. So I brought on filler like within a month of opening because I just couldn't say no anymore.
Right.
Some of the stumbling blocks were really just learning what people want, which I think we kind of fine-tuned while we were in Greensburg, and then realized that we needed a little bit more space, but also that our patients were coming from a certain end of town. So the location was a little bit of a challenge because it was a very small suite, And we had access to a couple other ones, but I also really wanted to create that brand feel and that experience, which I do love Greensburg, but it's very modern, very minimalist, and Harrison City and Penn Township is like a complete different vibe. It's very homey, it's a little cozier, and everyone that has been to both says that same thing. So I will say that, just making sure that we're providing the right services
Yeah.
to our clients was the number one challenge. And then just making sure that we had the correct space was number two so far in this, 11-month journey that we've been on.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating that you say that because, like, everything that I've seen about your brand, you're blending aesthetic medicine with wellness and education. And most practices, at least most practices that I come into contact with, a lot of them struggle to combine multiple verticals effectively. But it seems like you're building it in a way that it feels it's coming together cohesively and aligned. And I could see how that investigation process, like determining what your patient base wants, is kind of helping shape the choice to pursue the combined model. How do you approach treatment planning when you're thinking both cosmetically and holistically and with the wellness integrated?
So it really does come down to the consultation. Whenever somebody comes in for just tox or just filler, it's never about just what they come in for. I think it's really important to take the time to talk about all the things. Talk about skincare, talk about their health. What do you do for a living? I'm not doing that to fish in your pockets. I want to know, do you sit in front of a computer all day? Are you exposed to blue light? Do you have a sedentary kind of work lifestyle? Or are you active? Do you go to CrossFit? Are you a Pilates princess? What kind of vibe are we working with? Because if you invest in yourself in other ways in the moment, I can kind of ascertain what you're going to want to maybe dabble in here and there as far as cosmetics and wellness. Like, do you invest in yourself? Are you going to pay over $200 a month for a Pilates membership and not do anything to your face? Probably not. Um, so it's really kind of just getting to know somebody and investing in them and figuring out why they're here and digging a little bit deeper and kind of peeling back those layers.
Yeah. So that's a great point. Like I can see in a lot of practices they have that one driver that really is excellent at doing that having the conversations, the digging, making the patient feel comfortable, relaxing. The challenge can be sometimes with team building, right? Because you're not the
Mm-hmm.
only one meeting those patients. So you've structured and empowered, like you have your medical director, you have your aesthetics nurses, wellness, and operations. But in your experience, to get those quality consults, those quality treatments, the ones that drive retention, keep people coming back, you have to build a really high performing clinical and operations team. I wondered, what qualities do you look for when you're, yeah, I know you said you had your the two
Mm-hmm.
injectors, and that's kind of where all this started. But when you're looking at expanding the team and you're looking at new injectors or aesthetics, if they're going to be RNs or licensed estheticians, like what qualities do you typically tend to look for?
So I really do look for quality, genuine people. If you are in this for the money right out the bat, and that's, you're worried about your hourly pay and how much percent commission you're getting, like that to me initially is a turnoff. Um, I'll say that I've known Katie and Jenna for a number of years. So there was no interview. It was like this really is for you two. I will say Rachel. I look for a little bit of hustle. I want you to try a little bit with me. So she actually dropped off her resume to the Greensburg location when I wasn't there. But, when I opened the doors to Empower and started to socialize it on social media, I got resumes all the time in a lot of different ways with a very interesting array of grammatical errors and lack of cover letters. And I will say her resume was beautiful. I actually put that in a pile of keep for a reason. And I didn't need anybody right away, but I will say the old adage of slow to hire, quick to fire is 100% true.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I took her out to a meal. We sat there for 2 hours and I learned about her and her family, and everything was great, minus the fact that she has a droid. We're perfect. I wish she was an iPhone user. I told her that was,
Yeah.
I looked at her and I said, there's one thing wrong with you. And her heart just sunk. And she's like, what? I'm like, you have a droid and everything I have is Apple. But we're going to put her through rehab. Everything's going to be fine. She's going to make it out on the other end. But um, I think in this industry, looking for people that are in it for the right reasons is number one. That and trustworthy. I can teach people how to inject. I can teach people how to adopt a brand experience. But like, if you can't have a normal conversation and look me in the eye and have a genuine interest in another human besides what's in their pocket, then we have a problem. So, I mean, really just somebody that is, again, trustworthy, someone that is willing to put in the hard work and understand that this is not just a 9 to 5 job that you come into, punch a clock and leave. Like that's not the vibe here. That might be the vibe at other larger med spas, but that's not what happens at Empower.
Yeah. That's great. So you're really focusing on culture. And I don't say that lightly with the trivial way that, because everybody talks, all the businesses hiring, like, oh, culture is so important to us. But then you get there and 3 months later, you realize it's not. And it never was. It was just saying something to
Right.
make you think that we're the right practice to work at, where we can hire you cheap or try to, but you're trying to build that from the other side where it's the character and that person and how they feel about working with people, and that has to be a priority to them. I love everything about
Absolutely.
that. Yeah, I love everything about that. You've placed kind of a really big focus on education and evidence-based treatments, as well as like patient empowerment. And I wondered, in the experience that you've seen, now you've got your practices, you've had the practices that you participated in, when speaking and talking to these others, what are some of the biggest mistakes that med spas can make when it comes to educating patients and training your team on how to educate the patients and set expectations, and how have you refined that part of the process?
Well, I wouldn't say it's refined. That's always ongoing. But I will say that when educating, even if you have the patient that wants to know all the things about all the things, like I think as human adult learners, we retain probably 30% of what's told to us, right? So it's really kind of ascertaining that kind of like emotional ability to understand what your patient is retaining and what can be saved for later, and not just like giving them too much. So, um, not everything has to be said at the first appointment. Like, we have memberships, we have wellness, we have this and that, but like they don't need all of that. So just meeting them where they are and explaining it in a way that isn't up here and it's not below here, but like you really have to meet that patient where they are at that time. So I think that's really important. Um, and I think that you kind of just learn that by watching. I really had the girls, especially for the first 6 months, like listen to a lot of the things that I said, come in the room with me during consults to hear how I talk, because I feel like I'm pretty good at consulting and explaining things in a way that makes people feel that they've been heard. Um, but also too, when it comes to expectation setting, I don't really sugarcoat a lot of things. I like to explain the functionality of what a neurotoxin can and can't do, because people come in and they get their 3 or 4 fingers and they're pushing up their face and they're like, can Tox do this? I'm like, no, sweetie, Tox cannot do that. That is what we call plastic surgery. So, I give people enough information to be dangerous to make a decision, but I'm also very honest because I don't want people to have a false impression of something that can or cannot be done.
Right. Yeah, and that's gonna. I mean, those false impressions lead to dissatisfied long-term relationships. Then your retention, and your churn increases. Like, you don't see them coming back. You don't have a chance to talk about those memberships or cross sell or, cross treat opportunities and, expand out their treatment base. I also want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to dig into your business leadership outside of the treatment room.
Hmm.
Now, when you started working with aesthetics practice management, what gap was it that you saw in the industry that led you to create that? And what's the impact that you're trying to, or the gap that you're trying to close, helping other owners or providers like elevate their practices?
So APMG literally started with two people just talking after a talk I did at AmSpa. I met another practice manager. She found value in what I was saying. So it just started with one conversation. One conversation turned into another. And we just started like, hey, why don't we reach out to other practice managers? Because well, not to my knowledge, there isn't anything else that is like a virtual mastermind group like APMG, because we can all be doing the same thing in a very different way, in a very inefficient way, but we just don't know it because we don't have anyone else to kind of compare notes to. And it's not like we're looking at each other's test papers. It's we're just all trying to do the same thing, which is provide good patient care. We're trying to help support owners and, maintain a practice that has high standards, happy patients, happy providers, and make sure that all of those wheels are turning to various degrees because every practice manager functions in a very different way within their practice model. So it was almost like a support group. It was like AA for practice managers. We should all start the call with, "Hi, my name's Brandon. I'm a practice manager." But there wasn't an outlet or a continuous kind of conversation that happened. Like, yes, you go to these aesthetic conferences, you get excited, you get built up, you get a lot of education, you get this whole checklist of stuff to do, and then when
Right.
you get back to real world, you still have all those check boxes that you don't have time to implement or provide feedback on. So then it just kind of falls away to the wayside, and then you forget that it even happened. So that was kind of another goal and a gap to really help empower practice managers to get the things done that they have learned at some of these conferences and to share knowledge.
I'm going to go off my plan for just a hot second here and tell you how
Let's
much I
go.
appreciate and respect that. Um, when you're operating in a business, then you look at the business in your day and your operations through that lens, right? It's about my patients, it's about these things, right? You have your priorities there, and your heart is there. To switch gears entirely and going to being a support group for all the competitors, right? There's
Hmm.
rising tides raise all ships, right? So if we help the
Right.
industry do better and have a better view, and we get more opportunities to help patients, that's the goal, right? But when you have that, when you can switch that gear and go into, I am support for all these other practices, and I want them to grow as well, and have that ripple effect, you are indirectly impacting the treatment plan and the care of so many more patients by influencing the practice managers and the people that you're speaking to in this servant mindset. And so having that heart, I have all the respect in the world for. I really appreciate that you do that. I think that's fantastic. So it wasn't part of my plan for the conversation, but it's so worth pointing out that that's a big thing. It's a really big thing. And which kind of led me to like back into the points that I'd kind of thought through, getting ready for our conversation. Running a practice is a big thing. It is a full-time
Hmm.
plus job. Yet
Yes.
you have two locations. You're taking on the peer group, or and you're taking on a larger industry leadership role. From there, like I'm interested in knowing how you manage that. But then also, as you're talking to all these other people and you're having these experiences, what topics do you see owners, practice managers, and injectors like just craving clarity on? And like, what are the powerful lessons that you've learned there that could really help somebody?
Oh, let's see. How do I manage it all? a lot of coffee,
Yeah.
a little bit of Adderall, and a little bit of sleep. No, I do have a great team. Communication is number one, and I still fault at that all the time. I'm always looking for the best way to kind of communicate with my team. They put up with my late night texts. They are very tolerant of my ADHD rants, but they get the job done and they're amazing. I try to utilize people where you may not typically think that they could have a role in your business or your personal life. So and my stepdaughter was my assistant slash intern for a number of months up until about this semester. I had a very good patient who was very well versed in all things aesthetics, and she has been what I've kind of donned as a brand ambassador. So she goes around to local businesses when we just opened up this Penn Township location and passes out rack cards and talks about all the things that we do. So, utilizing people that put their services out there helps me until I can get somebody. I really need to just put myself in my copy machine, but I never really thought I would get to the day where Brandon needs a Brandon, but Brandon does need a Brandon and we'll find it. But I wholeheartedly believe that will organically come into my life. So there's that. And then I think the tail of your question was about the pain points that we kind of talk about in APMG or topics that kind of seem to come up. A lot of it is about communication and like always being forward thinking, and how do we, navigate the, anything that's controversial in our space, whether it's reward programs or how we do or inject or not inject a certain product, those things always kind of surface for all of us. But I think that the most valuable thing is having the resources to ask or to go to or to utilize whenever stuff like this comes up. So making sure that you have like a legal team that is well versed in aesthetics, or having a resource that understands the technology that you're using, or having someone that has the clinical expertise to give you some pointers on XYZ. Those things are kind of paramount, because in this highly unregulated industry, it's very easy to fly under the radar, but it's even more challenging to do everything correctly. So making sure that you're doing that is, costly. It's a commitment, and it really should be what everyone is doing. So, making sure that you understand all of those things. And again, the right resources, legal team, understanding your state statutes and who can do what is really what we kind of pass along to each other.
Yeah, that's great. And a lot of that, I think, transitions over to growth strategy, right? Because if you don't have your operations set, but you have to have some of that compliance and some of that legal stuff like on lock in order for you to take your message to market. And I wonder what kind of strategies actually on the marketing side are working best for you in your market. You have the two locations, they're kind of different, the personalities and the different practices. How do you approach differentiation and community connection in those places, and patient acquisition? I think about what I call like the patient flywheel, right? So you have convert, which is get them aware of you, or attract rather, convert, and get them to become a hand raiser into a patient, and then retention and retaining them, and then getting testimonials, case studies, things like that, so that you can continue to scale and support your messaging. How do you approach that with the two locations?
So I will tell you, to add to the list of things that were opportunities in the beginning, we'll say, digital marketing is very different in every area. So in the first location, Greensburg, my customer avatar is probably 45 to like 55, very Facebook heavy, not so much Instagram. I'm very Instagram, not Facebook. So like it was a really hard learning curve. So I thought, let's go old school and do those mailers. Like like a pizza company, and I spent a lot of money on some mailers, and I got absolutely no leads on that. Not one. I was like, out of 2,500, not one. But those are the things that you learn. Um, did a digital billboard on a very busy highway for not a lot of money. It was a good opportunity. Thought, whatever, we'll do it for 6 months. Got brand visibility.
Right.
Didn't necessarily put butts in my chair, but the number one thing that I think I do the most is I network my butt off. I belong to two private networking groups, two chambers of commerces, and I am constantly somewhere. So, for instance, every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m., private networking group every single Wednesday since February. Unless I've been on vacation or deathly ill, I am there. I am present. I talk about Empower Aesthetics. I talk about my beautiful injectors and my esthetician. And of the group, I'll just say generically, there's 80 members. Over 25% of them have been either in my chair or have purchased something from my business. And it continues to grow almost every week.
That's
So
great.
getting out there, right? And like talking about that. A lot of people sleep on their local chamber of commerce. And I will say, like, not everyone has the opportunity for networking groups and the opportunity to get their voice in front of people. But collaborating, going to vendor shows, like I literally do everything, and I always talk about Empower. And I am branded from head to toe. I should probably just get a tattoo at this point. It'd be cheaper, but just always talking about it. My car has my logo on the back.
Yeah.
I can never hide.
Well, that's probably a good thing with where you're at. And it actually is a good thing. And that you know some of those numbers, like off the top of your head, is, I think, really important for a practice manager or an owner to be aware of, like to know their numbers. There's an
Mm-hmm.
old saying, like, if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And
Mm-hmm.
there's truth to that, but there's so many numbers to know. And just like from the marketing side of things, knowing which channels are performing. And that's going to be different for most practices. I mean, there are some general guidelines like on places to start, but the channels
Mm-hmm.
that are going to perform optimally for each practice with their target audience, their niche, their geo, like all the different factors, it is going to make a difference. And when it comes to like knowing your numbers, kind of on the operations side of things, if you're thinking about when you're talking to med spa owners and you're coaching them on like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, or you're giving them some feedback, like these are the numbers that you need to know to really track if you want to operate at the highest level possible. What metrics do you think need to make that scorecard without fail?
I think, being this is my first year in my own business, looking at cost of goods sold and obviously top line revenue, um, and payroll. Those are like my top three, and keeping those within manageable buckets. And I will say I am not good at that. That is why I have a great accountant who tells me and yells at me for all of the things that I do because I have made mistakes. In my head they make sense, but like when they're out on paper and I see them and I know, and I'm like, Lewis, buddy, I know my cost of goods sold is really high this year, but it's like, year number one. I'm trying to get to here, there, and everywhere. But, making sure that those are in check, or at least that you have a plan or path to course correct and try to get some of those down, I think is very important. If you're just living on vibes and rainbows, like it'll take you, you know, down the ocean a little bit, but eventually you're gonna sink. So like I know, I've slapped my own wrist. I know some things that I've done, but I think if you just bury your head in the sand and don't look at those numbers out of fear, that's why a lot of people go under, because they either genuinely have no idea or they have an idea but just don't understand or find the resources to help them course correct.
Right. And I don't want to actually say the number because that makes it real. I don't really want to know
Mm-hmm.
it firmly because that makes it real. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think also like what you're talking about, knowing the COGS, your top line revenue, payroll, I would say probably patient retention. or the repetition rate. Are they coming back every month for skincare? Are they coming back every 3 months for toxins? Are they coming? How is that repetition? And what's the average lifespan? It might be a little soon to really get a firm beat on that now, but I think it's something you can be watching very early in the game, because that retention rate, and then the percentage of treatments performed that are new patients or starting with a new consult, that percentage will give you a good projection path on what growth looks like, right? If you're treating, if 15% of your treatments in a given month are new patients, then you can reasonably project a 15% growth pattern, and continuing that down. So, but if everybody is retention, then, and you have a churn rate of 10%, then you can expect to be out at X number of times. So I think those are great metrics. When you were looking at and working both internally and some of these mistakes that you found and some of these course corrections that you've been able to implement, what were some of the operational mistakes that could cost the med spas like the most money?
I think if you buy too much too soon of anything, right? Like I have a really bad habit of being too nice to my reps, and I'm like, sure, I'll put in that order to help you out. And it ends up not being the best idea for me, but especially with devices, like I am a device rep shielding ninja. Like I literally, don't DM me, do not come to my office. I have this whole sheet that gives you, it's like, dear vendor, like please answer all the questions on here in detail and email that to me. And if you actually do it, then I would talk to you. No one has done it yet. It has this whole like XYZ, like give me all the people around here that have it. What's the projected revenue, like all the things. And no one has ever done it. So I just ignore all of that. And I'm like, this is great for you. Like, I don't care what the technology is. I understand what it is by having so many friends in the industry that have all of these devices, what that entails. I don't want to go down that road right now. I want to focus on other things. I want to expand wellness. So I am just happy as a clam with injectables and skincare at this moment. Will that change? I always say never, because I said that I would never run a full marathon. And guess what I did in 2018, Chris? I ran the Pittsburgh full marathon. So
good for you.
I can now say that I will never ever run a marathon again because
Right.
I need a new hip because of it. So we're done there. But in this realm, I'll never say never, but just not right now. And I respectfully decline the invitation, the donuts that you're going to bring me, the dinner. I'm good. Thank you.
That's great. That's really good advice too. A lot of the reps for these devices, not to, I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a Cyton or it's a Halo or whatever the devices might be. Some of them can be hundreds of thousands. If you haven't built your revenue to the point that can sustain that, and if you don't have a good beat on your audience and know that the demand is there, not the salesperson telling you that everybody else sells so many of these, but that the demand is there in your market, at your location. If it's not, then if you don't know that really thoroughly, then it's probably not the right time to move on it. And, at the end of the day, they're all sales, right? It's device sales, and they're very good and talented and skilled at their job, and they know exactly how to work into the practice. So yeah, putting your foot down on that, I think that's a great strategy. Like I really like that for the vendors.
It really, honest to God, it is. And the one thing that I did buy, I bought a hydrodermabrasion machine. It's not hydrofacial, but it's very similar. But I specifically didn't want hydrofacial because there are 9 in a 10-mile radius around me.
Right.
I don't doubt that I can't sell hydrofacial, but why do I want to do the same thing that everybody else is doing? I want to do something different. So I have a device by Candela that I love, and I think that, from an operational standpoint, it's a much better value than hydrofacial with all of the myriad of consumables. There's too many, like ADHD, I need like a set of 6 things I can choose from, not an endless thing of whatever. With hydrofacial, I'm like looking in the sky, like who made a serum for what now? Like I don't like the complication. I want it to be easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing that I would think about too with those growth in those devices is really look at consumables and cost of operation. Some things they just cost so much. There's some devices out there now that are getting much less than the consumables, and I think a lot of the manufacturers are recognizing that as a pain point. And we understand that it's just another revenue model for you. You're trying to sell me this. You'll give me a $10,000 discount on this machine because I'm going to have to buy $20,000 worth of consumables in the first quarter. Like it's just just to keep it moving. So, gosh, you have really done a lot of great work, and now that you have with the two practices, you're expanding coaching, education footprint. I can see why you need coffee and espresso, but where do you find time to think about scaling? What's next for Empower? What should med spa owners understand about growth, expansion, and preparing for the next level? What is the next level for you?
Quite honestly, I really just want to deepen the brand experience and get more into wellness, and not, when I say wellness, it's like truly understanding your body and looking at data. So incorporating lab draws into the practice is the next step. But also circling back to, people first, my medical director is by trade a DO, and he is in regenerative medicine, specifically with orthopedic. So that's how we met, because he has been trying to keep my hip preserved as long as I possibly can. So I really wanted to lock arms with him to get more into hormone replacement and optimization from peptides and hormones. So we're working together because he is literally right around the corner from me, 1 minute away. So we're working to create a better experience for those that are seeking their hormone optimization and looking at anything like more regenerative.
Yeah, that makes tons of sense. And that leads me, I guess, into my next thought, which was, and I wanted to make sure we get there before we wrap up. And I know I'm getting close to your time, but I wanted to ask about the future of aesthetics and wellness. Like you're plugged into all these different sources, these conferences, education groups, direct patient care. When you if you start thinking about the next 2 to 3 years, what changes do you see coming, and how can a med spa owner prepare now instead of react down the road?
I think that really kind of taking a step back and understanding your vision and your why. It always sounds corny, but if you've ever heard Terry Ross speak, she'll talk about the why before she gets into her really hyperactive sales stuff. I love when she goes into the why of everything. So why are you here? Why are we all here? I got a text literally this afternoon from a patient that we did biostimulating treatments and filler on 2 weeks ago. And she's like, I loved everything that you did. I'm in it for the feels. I'm in it for those text messages that I get. So making sure that you are still in this whole entire space for the right reason, I think is essential as we go forward, because that's really going to base your decisions on what you do next. Do you buy that device or not? Should I keep doing XYZ? Making sure that you understand your authentic goal and journey for your practice. And if you don't have that, kind of taking a step back and rebranding, reorganizing, making sure that you're aligned. And if you're aligned, that your team is aligned, and that everything kind of flows forward, because technology is going to change. We're going to get new products. There's always going to be a new technique that someone is doing. So, how do all of those factors kind of play into how we move forward to strategically and efficiently offer these services for patients? Because finances are always going to be a thing. So we need to make sure that we're meeting people where they're at and making sure that we're meeting that demand for the patient too.
Yeah. That's so good. So, all right, my last question. I really want to ask this one. If you could go back to day one, right? You're still in ICU, you're not even in aesthetics medicine, right? You're just stepping in day one in the practice on the aesthetics journey, and you could hand yourself a note with one piece of advice that would just skyrocket your success, just totally accelerate it. What would that one piece of advice be?
You want the honest answer?
Well, is it rated like PG-13? Because then I
Yes.
don't. Like,
No.
I want the R-rated answer.
No.
I want the whole thing.
No, quite honestly, it'd be stop buying stupid shit. Like, I buy a lot of stuff. Like, I will say, I like luxury things. I like luxury bags. I don't need that stuff. Like, you don't need that. Now that I turned 40 this year, I'm like, you know, there's a lot of money sitting around here that's doing nothing. So I would rather have that money back now of all the Louis Vuitton and stuff that I bought, to be very honest with you. Like, I would have scaled back on that from the past 20 years.
That's a pretty fair point. Yeah, I think a lot of us share that. Like, but it's not hoarding if it's cool stuff, right? So,
I like to think of it as an investment. It's like, you know, a trading card or a baseball card or whatever.
see,
I'm, you know, not a fan of sports, as you can probably tell.
but the analogy works.
But, you know, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it still has value.
yeah, they do. Well, Brandon, this whole conversation's been phenomenal. You're clearly providing like real leadership, and not just in the practice, but in the industry. And your perspective with helping so many owners and executives, practice managers move forward more confidently. For the listeners who want to follow you, want to connect with you, or follow your work, learn more about you and your story, where should they go?
Instagram is the best place. I am the THE_aesthetic consultant on Instagram. And from there, you can go down a whole rabbit hole where to find me and empower and all the other things through a link tree.
Awesome. Well, we'll put some of those links in the show notes as well. And to everybody's that's listening, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to check out those show notes. Make sure to reach out and follow. Also, make sure to subscribe, leave reviews, share this with another med spa owner who wants to grow and wants any information that can help them move in that direction. For now, I'm Chris Fink, the host, and this has been Moving the Needle. We'll see you in the next episode. Brandon, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris.